Alone for you.
And every one of your concerns is really a concern for your own identity. When you're hungry, you're more interested in the eye than the hunger. It's really appetite, obviously. But our appetites use us. You don't have an appetite. The appetite has you. And you stand, look, I didn't tell you what I said was true. And I can hear you listening. You're listening. I don't think that's true. Nobody asked you. I'm inviting you to stand in the possibility, like a space, like an opening, like a clearing. Stand in the possibility that you don't have an appetite. Your appetite has you. And for the most part, those things with which you are concerned, like I want, I like, I don't want, they are not your concerns. They are its concerns. And those concerns have you. You don't have them. Now I'm inviting you to stand in that possibility and look out at your everyday way of being in the world. Is it I have a job, or does your job have you? Now honestly. See, I don't want you to get the answer. I want you to look out from the possibility that our work, that our relationships, that our families, that our beliefs, that our wants and don't wants have us, rather than the other way around. That it's not that you think, even though it thinks you think. It's really it thinks, and you have the thoughts. It's not you feel. That's a superstition. I'm inviting you to consider the possibility that it feels, and you have the feelings it feels, and those feelings use you. It is using your life. I didn't say that was true, so stop trying to figure out whether you agree. I'm inviting you to stand in the possibility that the being of human beings was here before you were ever thought of. It is an already set of options that lives in our languaging, in our culture, in our practice. The being of human beings lives in our languaging, our culture, our practices. It's an already set of options. There is no possibilities. Just a set of options. Yeah, my options will look different than your selection of the options. Your path through the options. And I may have something to do with which option I take. Because this being of human beings that is using us is an already set of options. And it is using your life for what? And I don't care what you think the answer is. I'm asking you to stand in the question. Within this larger question, what kind of a being is a human being? I'm asking you to stand in the larger question. It is using your life for what? Now you notice what you think and all your opinions. You notice that will all come up for you. And I'm asking you to put those aside for the moment. And have the courage just to live in the question. Like an open question, not a question looking for an answer. Not a question with an answer, but like an open question. Stand in the question, stand in the space of possibility, the opening, the clearing. It is using my life for what? Stand in there and look out at your everyday being in the world. Stand in that question and look out at you waking up in the morning. Look out at your getting ready for the day. Look out at your showing up, wherever you show up during the day, whether it's in your home or in your office, with your children, with your spouse, with your friends. Look out from the question, from the opening. What is it using my life for? And look at your everyday being in the world. What is it using your life for? Again, I'm not questioning for an answer. We're not looking for information here. I'm inviting you to see what shows up like a breaking open, like a certain freedom for being, like a possibility, like an empowerment in your everyday being in the world, standing in the possibility and the clearing that these questions are, looking out at your everyday concerns, at your everyday being in the world. What is it using your life for in your relationships? I say it's interesting. If you're doing this, if you're doing the work, the cheap answers don't work, do they? So if you stand inside the question, what is it using my life for, and look into your relationships, it ain't using your life for love. That doesn't come very easily there. You notice that the pat answers, that what you and I already know, and even what we know that we don't know, aren't very useful when you look from certain possibilities. Because we're not getting at what we're ordinarily interested in getting at. Please don't think I didn't say you don't have options. You do have options. I want to make a clear distinction between option and possibility. I said that there is no possibility. I didn't say that there weren't any options. When you showed up, human being was already a certain set of options. And you think, and you feel, and you speak, and you act, and you live in that set of options that was already before you were even thought of. So that there is no possibility for being, for human beings. There are only options within the possibility you inherited. If you travel on airplanes enough, you finally wind up reading the magazine. Because eventually you read everything else. And in that magazine, they have puzzles. And if you don't fly in airplanes that much, if you have children, your children bring puzzles home. One of the puzzles in all airplane magazines, and which all children bring home, is the puzzle of the 9 dots. So this is a puzzle in which there are 9 dots on a piece of paper, or a blackboard in this case. And your job is to connect the 9 dots, all 9 of them, with 4 straight lines without ever picking your pencil up from the page, or in this case, your chalk from the chalkboard. So there are many options. So while there are many options for the attempt to connect the 9 dots with 4 straight lines without lifting the instrument from the surface, while there are many options, there is no possibility of doing it. Many options, no possibility. And whatever is using you, the options which it provides for you are the only game in town. What is it up to? What is it that it's after? Why does it think the things it thinks? Why does it think those things which we have as thoughts? Why does it feel those things which we have as feelings? Why does it believe those things which we have as our beliefs? Why does it act in those ways which we wind up having as our actions? Why does it explain the actions it takes in the way in which it explains them, which we wind up with as the explanations which we have? Why does it like this and not like that? Why does it want this and not want that? What's it driving after? Where is it going? What is the possibility, which it is, in which there isn't any outside of? There are only options in the possibility that we inherited when we showed up as human beings. What is it that all of the options add up to? See, it's one possibility with many options. One possibility is no possibility. There aren't any other possibilities than the one. There is no possibility. There are only options. Now, if you stand inside that possibility that I just shared with you, that there are no possibilities, there are only options, you will begin to see into the way we behave and why we behave like that. You'll begin to see why many of the problems of this age have been around since the beginning of humankind. Yes, we've got new options, but there are no new possibilities. There are no possibilities. There are only options. If you take the board as the scope of the possibility of being for human beings, and you understand that that being has a commitment of trust, that it's constructed in a way so as to, and wonder about what it's constructed in a way so as to what? You'll begin to see that while there are many places on the board that I can take the chalk, many options, I can only be on the board. What is it? What is that board you showed up in? You see, I say that the quality of our lives, that our effectiveness with our daily concerns, our power as we are in the world on an everyday basis is determined not by that to which we're paying attention, namely the circumstances, but is determined by the box in which the circumstances come. I say, and I'm asking you to consider like a possibility, not decide whether you agree. I say that the circumstances of a person's life don't determine the quality of that person's life. I say that the box that the circumstances come in has more power in terms of impact on a person's life than the circumstances themselves. I say that there's not much power in what you think. But that's still hard for you to get like a possibility. Again, I invite you out to the banks of the river about 3 or 4 in the morning on a clear night, so you can see the indifference which the universe has for what you think. I say the box in which you think, that set of options which has you and determines what you may think, often even what you will think, I say that there's more power in that. For instance, for example, as evidence for my assertion, I know people whose circumstances are horrible, people with terminal illnesses, who know that they're about to die, whose lives have more quality, more aliveness, whose lives are richer, who are themselves more alive than people who can pass a physical at the doctors. They've got more vitality, more aliveness than so-called healthy people. I know lots of intelligent, well-educated people, far more intelligent than others with whom I can contrast, far more educated, whose intelligence and education comes in a package of options such that they are less effective in the world than less intelligent, less well-educated people. I say that the circumstances of your life have less to do with your effectiveness in life, less to do with your aliveness, less to do with your having an impact on life, less to do with the quality of your life than the set of options within which those circumstances show up. That is to say, less to do with all of that than the interpretation, or rather the structure of interpretation which you are, has to do with the quality of your life and your effectiveness in your life. And I also say that you and I give almost no thought to that. We're very thoughtful about our circumstances, very thoughtful about the facts about ourselves and our lives. And we give almost no thought In fact, we're unaware that we live in a structure of interpretation, in an already set of options, and we only think what's allowed in that set of options. So if you stand over a maze and you put the rat in at one end and there's food at the other end, there may be many ways through the maze, many ways of getting through the maze, and the rat has the sense of lots of possibility. So when you stand over the maze and look down, you can see, well, there are many options. You can go through the maze like this, you can go through it like that. There's no possibility, there's only the maze. What is the maze in which we showed up? You and I showed up as human beings. We showed up in the being of human beings. What is the being of human beings designed for? To what is it committed? Where is it going? What is it using your life for? And it is using your life. Its thoughts use your life. Its appetites, its I wants, its I likes, its I thinks, its I feels is using your life. For what is it using your life? What is it using your life for? Can you forego getting the answer right away and just stand in the question? What is it that being, the being of human beings that I showed up in, what is it that it uses my life for? You notice it gives you a totally different cast, a totally different view of your everyday being in the world, of your everyday, your interaction with your everyday concerns. So, I want to suggest a possibility, something for you to try out like a possibility, that the 9 dots of being for human beings, the options, or really the set of all of the options for human beings, what each of those options lives inside of like a set. The set, the being of human beings, is about survival. And what it's using your life for is survival. Now, you don't have to do anything with that for the moment. It's just a possibility. I want to take a look at another possibility, and I want to put the two of them together. When you are, that you are the identity I pointed at in the phrase I think. When you are that you are it. The I pointed to in the phrase I feel, I want, I like, I don't like. When you are that, you are that. Not when you think you are that, not when you believe you are that, because it doesn't make any difference what you think or believe. Remember the stars? They don't move for that. But when you are that, you are. The identity I. When you are that, you are that. And you couple that with what it's up to. You get a very powerful look into how this, what it's up to, is translated into our everyday way of being in the world, into our everyday engagement with our everyday concerns. What it's concerned with, once you are that you are it, once you are that you are the I in the pointed at the phrase I think, I feel, I like, I don't like, then what it's up to is making you right, it, I, right, and making anything else, by contrast, wrong. What's using your life is using your life to make that which you are, that you are, namely the identity I, it's using your life to make sure that I dominate anything or anybody, and maybe just as importantly, that I avoid the domination of anybody or anything. It's using my life. It's using up my life to make sure that I win, that I avoid losing. It's using my feelings, my thoughts, my likes, my dislikes. It's using all of that to justify it and to invalidate anything which isn't it. So that's what it's using your life for. Now I'm inviting you to stand in that possibility. I didn't say that it was true. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm asking you to stand in the possibility that that is what it uses your life for. To stand in the possibility that the being, that set of options in which you showed up, is using your life, given that you have identified yourself as your identity, the I in the phrase I think, that it's using your life to make you right and others wrong, to dominate and avoid the domination of anything or anybody, to win, to avoid losing, to justify it, and to validate anything that isn't it. That's nasty medicine, isn't it? I said that tonight was about coming to grips with our own inauthenticity, to at least be somewhat authentic about our own inauthenticity. Now, that's nasty news. And I know that the first thing that you will do when you hear about that is to attempt to avoid the domination of that possibility. That's it at work. The thoughts that you just had, that couldn't be true. All those thoughts about yes, but, how about, and what if, that's it at work. See, lots of people spend their whole lives attempting to avoid the domination of the ruthless rules of reality. They're called seekers. They seek to get out of this trap of survival. They want to be free of this trap of survival. The problem is that the attempt to get out of the trap is the trap. You see, to attempt to avoid the domination of it is being dominated by it. See, I know that when we have this kind of discussion, people on the way home, they'll be driving home, they'll be talking about what happened tonight. And in the conversation, you'll all of a sudden notice you're trying to be right. Oh my God, I'm trying to be right. And then the first thing you'll do when you notice that you were trying to be right is you'll try to stop being right in order to be right about not being right. See, I know that no matter how many times I say at the beginning of the evening about giving up, trying to hide our inauthenticity, no matter how many times I speak at the beginning of the evening about not trying to get the answer, about not using the evening to get better, about not using the evening to get a solution, about not using the evening to improve yourself. No matter how many times I say that, no matter what we talk about, you stick it in the mall called, how can I be better and improve myself? So if in fact you begin to discover the power that your own inauthenticity has over you, the power that it has, the force that it has, that it exercises, you begin to discover that, the first thing people want to do is to avoid it. But that's more of it. No, you will, if you were working tonight, begin to notice when standing in this possibility that your life is being used by it, and what it's using your life for is to make that which you've identified yourself as right, to avoid the domination of that which you've identified yourself as, to avoid it's being dominated by anything or anybody. When you stand in that possibility, you'll have some very deep insights into life and into your own life. I say that there's an enormous power in being authentic about our own inauthenticity. I say that there's real power, and that power shows up in our everyday being in the world like a practical, hard-headed impact on our effectiveness and on the quality of our living. I say that there's that kind of an impact for those people who will live with the possibility. I didn't say believe it was true. I say live with the possibility. Look, the thing I want to give you an opportunity to consider is what happens when you cover up, when one covers up the way one is. What happens to us when we cover up the...
We'll continue with the cover up. Hope you have the best ever. Peace, love. Bye-bye.